Here's how Frozen helped solve a 60-year-old cold case. This is Nerdist Now. If you've ever been challenged to connect Idina Menzel to a mysterious Russian cold case from the 1950s in some sort of strange 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon-esque game, well, your life just got way easier. National Geographic recently reported how Swiss scientists, with the help of Disney animators, may have finally cracked the weird mystery surrounding the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident. Now, for those who don't know, the Dyatlov Pass incident involved a group of 9 Russian hikers who passed away in the northern Ural Mountains, also known as the Dead Mountains, back in 1959. The mystery surrounding these tragic deaths of these unfortunate hikers made the case a perfect target for all manner of conspiracy theories. Of the 9 that were recovered, 6 of them were diagnosed with hypothermia as the cause of death, but it gets a little bit stranger than that. 2 of the hikers were found under a cedar tree near the remains of a fire. 3 others were found in intervals of hundreds of feet from said tree, and 4 more were discovered in a ravine another 250 feet away. The 2 hikers who were discovered under the tree had burned hands, and the 3 hikers who didn't succumb to hypothermia died from physical trauma similar to that of a vicious attack. They were all also in various forms of undress, with articles of clothing scattered about, and some of their tents had been cut open from the inside out, almost like they were attempting to escape something inside their own tent. Everything from animal attacks to Russian military experiments to Yetis have been thrown around over the years as possible explanations for what happened when avalanches didn't seem to correctly line up with the geography and the causes of death. According to National Geographic, many argued that the avalanche theory initially proposed in 1959 still didn't seem to stack up. The team's tent encampment was said to have cut into the snow on a slope with an incline seemingly too mild to permit an avalanche. Weather records also showed there was no significant snowfall on the night of February 1st, 1959 that could have triggered an avalanche, and the bizarre injury seemed atypical of what avalanche victims actually endure. Swiss scientist Johann Gohm, the head of the Snow Avalanche Simulation Laboratory at the Swiss Technical Institute EPFL, has another explanation they recently published in the journal Communications, Earth and Environment. Gohm is also a really big fan of the 2013 Disney animated film Frozen, particularly the realistic movement with how the digitally animated snow worked in the movie. He was so blown away by it, he eventually reached out to Disney to ask for a favor. After hopping on a jet and flying to Los Angeles, Gohm met with the team of animators behind Frozen snow physics, and he asked if he could get a copy of the animation code that they used during that film's production. Disney agreed to give Gohm the animation code, and then he modified it so his lab's avalanche models could simulate the impacts that avalanches would have on the human body. Basically, he ran a bunch of tests as to what would happen if you were suddenly attacked by about 30,000 Olafs. Hi! Now, Gohm worked with geotechnical engineering professor Alexander Pusrin on this project to make a simulation of the Kolatsiakl, the so-called Mountain of the Dead avalanche, and I hope I pronounced that properly. But they also needed realistic values for the forces and pressures human beings would experience during an avalanche, so they turned to General Motors, and this is where things once again get a little bit dark. According to Pusrin, we discovered that in the 1970s, General Motors took 100 cadavers and broke their ribs, hitting them with different weights at different velocities. This study was used to see what happens to the human body during a car crash, and that data was ultimately used to test the safety of seatbelts. Some of the cadavers in those tests were braced with rigid supports, while others were not, and this worked as a great variable because on the slopes of the Kolatsiakl Mountains, the hikers had placed their bedding atop their skis, meaning that the avalanche which crashed down upon them as they slept struck an unusually rigid target, similar to some of the tests that GM conducted during the 1970s. With the Frozen animation codes and GM studies in hand, Gohm and Pusrin showed that a block of snow could handily break the ribs and skulls of people, which would explain why some of these hikers incurred such horrible, brutal injuries. Now sure, this revelation is admittedly backed up by years of scientific research and coding, but ultimately we have Elsa, Anna, and all of the hard-working animators on Frozen to thank for finally helping solve this 62-year-old cold case. But tell us, what's your favorite still unsolved mystery? Do you think Tangled could be used to explain Jimmy Hoffa's whereabouts? Let us know in the comments below, and for all the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.